welcome back to my channel. I am so excited for today's video. It is going to be my second update in my Pan That palette. I am currently working on the ABH Sultry palette for my Pan That palette 2023. This is my first time ever attempting a Pan That palette, and so far I have been having a lot of fun. I will say I did not work on this palette nearly as much in February as I did in January, but I was traveling in February and I did not bring this palette with me, and then there was a week where I didn't wear eyeshadow in February, so I'm actually still very happy with my progress in February and still feeling motivated to continue to work on the Sultry palette. So I don't have any new pans to share with you guys today, but I do have some progress. If you are interested, stay tuned. First, if you have yet to subscribe to my channel and you like project panning content or just chit-chatting about makeup, I would love if you'd consider subscribing before moving on. And other than that, let's jump into the video. All right, guys, I have all my green on today. I love this little like crew neck I found. So I found this like online boutique that I'm like obsessed with right now. I think it's called Nanomatics. I'll leave it linked down below. And they have the cutest stuff. I don't know if this is available. Yesterday there was a bunch of sizes that were out when I was looking to link it, but I can link some other options that are similar to this. I absolutely love this. Shenanigans, heck yes. And then I have my St. Patty's gnomes. There's a couple of videos that I pre-filmed that will be going up after this video that won't have my gnomes in the background, maybe like 1 or 2 videos. This is my first video filming with my gnomes, so just know if you see a video after this, my gnomes have not gone away. Like I mentioned in the introduction, my Pan That palette is the ABH Sultry palette, and in January I reached for this a total of 23 times. As mentioned, I did not reach for this nearly as much. In fact, I almost cut my use in half, but also as mentioned, this palette didn't stand a chance to get used that much in February. I will continue on to try and get a few more uses in March. So in February I did use it 12 total times. I'm hoping to at least reach for this 15 times in March, bare minimum. So I will pop up a picture on the screen of where this palette was in the introduction and January so that you can see where we were at, and then I will add a third picture so that you can see where this palette stands today. So as you can tell, no new pans, and actually I haven't looked at the comparison photos yet to know like if I actually think some of these pans have expanded or if I think some of the dips are a little bit dippier. I will also insert some b-roll footage of where this palette stood in January versus where it stands now in February, and then in just a moment we can go shade by shade so I can let you know how many times I have used each of these eyeshadows. So last update, I did mention that I was trying to hit pan on the shade of Rose Quartz, and I actually think I might be closer to hitting pan on Teak as opposed to Rose Quartz. Nevertheless, I am still hopeful that I could potentially have a pan on both of those shades next update. You guys give me some great suggestions in my January update about different ways that I could try and incorporate some of these shades that I think are going to give me a tougher time. So these 3 shades at the bottom, and then also the shade Bloom. I did use Bloom quite a bit this past month to kind of warm up some of my looks, and I actually had a lot of fun in the ways that I was able to creatively use Bloom. And I have mentioned I think I will end up using Bloom as a blush in the summertime as well. So I definitely feel like I was a little bit more creative with the Sultry palette this last month as opposed to January, and I'm just excited to continue to see what sort of different looks I can come up with. And then this is also an easy palette for me to just reach for on a day-to-day basis because I have my like standard go-to looks that I can create that I feel totally comfortable wearing to work. So as I mentioned, I did only reach for this palette 12 total times in February. We can now look shade by shade to see where we are at. All right, so starting with the first shade, Fresh. I am almost positive that this pan has expanded, and I am really hopeful that this will only take me another 1 to 2 months to complete. I was really hoping to clear out one of the sides there, but alas, that just wasn't in my future for February. I did end up reaching for Fresh a total of 12 times, so every time I reached into this palette, I reached into Fresh. I am at a total of 34 uses within this project for that shade. Moving on to Pearl, I used Pearl quite a bit on the inner corner, and I'm fairly confident that this pan has expanded, or at least the dip surrounding the pan has gotten deeper. So I did reach for Pearl a total of 6 times in February for a total of 17 uses within this project. Moving on to Steam. Steam, I do feel like is going to give me a little bit of trouble. So I reached for Steam 2 times in February, putting me at 4 total times within this project. I will say I did create a look using Bloom and Steam together, and I actually really liked the way that the look came out. So I do plan on recreating that a few times, and I also want to see if I can incorporate Steam into some of the green looks that I have planned for St. Patrick's Day. I feel like green and gold is a good combination. I don't know why I'm holding the palette up right now. So I'm hoping to get some more use out of Steam in the month of March. I did forget to mention, someone gave me the great recommendation that I should try and use each pan in the palette a total number of times for like the number of months we are into the year. So for example, in January, use each of the pans a minimum of 1 time, in February a minimum of 2 times, etc., which I did reach that goal. I reached for each shade at least 2 times this past month, and I am giving myself the goal to reach for each shade within this pan at least 3 times in the month of March. Jumping back in, Rose Quartz is a shade that I think is so beautiful, and I was actually surprised to see that I only reached for Rose Quartz 4 total times in the month of February, especially February being Valentine's month, the month of Valentine's. I would have expected that I reached for Rose Quartz more, but I am at 14 total uses for Rose Quartz within this project. Next we have Ember. I did reach for Ember 2 times in the month of February, putting me at 6 total uses for this project. Ember I think is going to be a little bit more of a difficult or more challenging shade for me as well. Just looking at it, it is, I actually think I should experiment by putting this one all over the lid. I think I would really enjoy it that way. So far I've mostly just been incorporating it into looks using it on like the outer third of my eye, but I haven't reached for Ember all that much, and I'm a little bit nervous about Ember. So if you guys have any ways you can think of that you think I should try to incorporate the shade Ember, leave me your comments down below. Then moving on to Bloom. I did reach for Bloom a total of 4 times this last month, and I reached for it 4 times using it as eyeshadow. I didn't reach for it using it as blush at all in February. So I'm at 7 total uses within this project. And as mentioned, I was having so much fun trying to creatively incorporate this into looks, and I'm very excited to continue to try and find other creative ways to use Bloom. Moving on to Birch. I actually only reached for Birch 5 times in February, which also kind of surprised me. I am at 21 total uses in Birch. I will be curious to see if that pan has expanded at all. I feel like maybe just the slightest bit with those 5 uses. I am confident I will use Birch quite frequently in March, and I'm hopeful that we can expand that pan quite a bit in the month of March. Moving on to the bottom row, we have Cinder. So I reached for Cinder 3 total times in February, putting me at 6 total uses within this project. I think Cinder is a beautiful shade. For some reason, I just have not reached for it all that much. But the other day, I just put Twig in the crease and then Cinder all over the lid, and I loved the way that look turned out. So I will continue to probably use that look and recreate that look quite frequently for work. Moving on to Twig. I reached for Twig 3 total times, putting me at 6 total uses. I'm not sure if this pan has expanded much at all. Twig I used to absolutely love. I believe Twig was the first pan I actually hit in this palette, but I just do not find Twig being my favorite shade anymore. But again, I really loved using Twig and Cinder the other day, so we will continue to see what we can do there. I'm hoping I can expand that pan a little bit more in March as well. Next we have Teak. I only reached for Teak 2 total times. I do feel like the dip in my head at least has gotten a little bit deeper since the last update. I'm not totally certain of that, but we will see when we look at the side by side. I am hoping to reach for Teak more in March as well, maybe at least 5 total times. Would love to hit pan on Teak. I feel like that should be a good goal for me to aim towards in March. Moving on to Dystopian. Dystopian I reached for 4 total times in February, putting me at 14 total uses within this project. Dystopian is definitely not the best deep brown I have in my collection. It is what I have on my brows today, and I actually have been using this primarily just as a brow powder. This is a very dry brown shade. I don't know if it has gone off or what the deal is. Some of you mentioned that yours is also very dry. I don't know if it's aged, it's just gotten like drier with age, but it does not perform like it once did. And I've just been using this in the brows mostly, which makes me a little bit nervous because I don't feel like there's been a lot of progress within this shade, but I reached for it 14 total times since the introduction. We'll see what happens with this shade, but I'm feeling a little bit nervous about that one as well, just because I do not love using it as actual eyeshadow. Cyborg, I reached for 2 times in February, putting me at 3 total uses within this project. Cyborg does make me a little bit nervous, but I did have fun creating a few different looks. I mixed it with rose quartz, which I thought was really beautiful, and I layered it over slate one day, which I also really liked. So I'm excited to continue to try and be more creative with Cyborg and just figure out ways that I can use that shade so that I can hit pan and maybe use up that shade. I'm not so sure about that, but we'll see. And then moving on to Slate, I also reached for Slate 2 total times in February, putting me at 3 total uses in this project. Slate grays in general just are not a shade I reach for that frequently, so this shade is going to be quite difficult, I think, to hit pan. Even like thinking of mixing it with other shades within this palette, I'm like, meh, I don't really know. And then finally we have Neor, which I reached for 2 total times, putting me at 4 uses within this project. So that is where we stand with my Sultry palette here in the beginning of March. Not the most exciting month in February, but honestly, I'm not feeling discouraged at all. I'm still feeling really excited about getting more use out of this palette, hopefully hitting a couple of pans. I am a little bit disappointed I didn't hit any pans last month, but I am going to really aim to hit pan on teak as well as rose quartz. I have good dips going, and I feel like each time I reach into those shades, the dips just grow even more. And then my goal is going to be to reach for each shade a minimum of 3 times, as I mentioned, but I am really hoping that I could potentially maybe reach for like these 6 shades right here at least 5 times. Steampunk, like I said, makes me a little bit nervous, but I would love to get more use out of this shade in the month of March because I feel like it's just a good March shade. So that is where I stand with my Sultry palette. I would love to know in the comments below, are you guys doing a pan that palette? How is it going? Do you have any other suggestions for different ways you think I should be using these palettes? You guys always have great recommendations and great ideas, so would love your feedback in the comments below. Other than that, that is going to wrap it up for today's Pan That Palette update for February. I hope that you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for sticking around to watch. I love you guys so much, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.